Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Thorsby. I'm the CEO of ABODE Contemplative Care for the Dying. This is ABODE right here. I think most all of you are familiar with our beautiful home where we teach the art of contemplative living and dying while caring for folks at the very, very end of life. And we do it at no charge. We run completely on donations and grants. And we are in for a very special treat this evening. We have Linda O'Neill and Catherine Lillibridge to give us an overview of one of our newest and most beautiful programs, our Deep Listening Circles. Before we dive in, it's ABODE's tradition to just take a moment to think and contemplate. We call it a contemplative moment. And what I would like for us to do is take some deep breaths and spend a minute reflecting on a time when you really listened to someone, a time when you were in the moment, fully focused, you didn't interrupt, and you just listened to someone tell their story. So, for just a minute, reflect on that and think about what that was like for you and for your friend or your loved one or whomever. So here we go.
Mary, thank you for hosting us this evening. We really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. I'm delighted that you're here, and I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to mute myself so I can really listen.
Perfect. So, Catherine and I invented this and did it all through COVID, beginning in COVID, and we are still doing it between the two of us. And I would say we do it 42 out of 52 weeks of the year. So we've got a long history. And this is our first year of doing it at ABODE, where we looked at doing the deep listening with a bigger group, a group of 5. And we want to acknowledge that we stand on some of the people's worthiness and work that when we created this. And Jeremy Taylor is really big in the dream movement, and he has a protocol for leading self-led dream groups that we used. And Parker Palmer has a protocol called clearance committees that I'm trained in, and we use some of that. And we used the 12-step model, for the various addictions as a prototype. And very importantly, we use Stephen Covey's work, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Although he's deceased, we still find resonance with, especially his skill that says, seek first to understand and then be understood. And that's a root of deep listening. And also the Benedictine model, where Benedictine says, listen with the ear of the heart. So we have very traditional norms, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them, but then I want to stress one in particular. Start and end on time, be open and receptive, be fully present with each other, make space for everyone to speak, very traditional norms, until we get to one that says, listen to each other and avoid autobiographical responses and avoid crosstalk. And what does autobiographical response mean? It means I'm listening to you and suddenly you say something that makes me think of an experience I've had or a story I'd like to tell. And I stop listening to you and begin rehearsing what I might say the very minute that you close your mouth. I do not say, thank you, Mary, for telling me that story. I don't acknowledge Mary at all. I just jump in, take over, and start talking. it's painful when that happens to you. It's very painful, especially if you've been very vulnerable with your comment and you don't feel seen or heard at all. And so in the acting world, they call this upstaging. So let's think of it energetically. The lead actor's doing their role, and another actor on the stage makes a movement or redirects the audience attention to themselves and kind of step over the energy that the person on stage is supposed to be holding in that moment. Well, it's easy enough to say these words, but doing it is incredibly hard, incredibly hard. Catherine's going to go over the protocol. And so when you are the one speaking and telling your story, you are the only one speaking. And then we pass to the other people, and then you're receiving feedback. And so the other hard place in this is it's hard to receive feedback. And so then I want to do something to break the energy coming at me, even though it's loving energy. So, Catherine, let me just pass to you, and you go over the protocol, and you can link when the autobiographical listening is so important.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the screen? And let me see, can I move the screen? Yes, you see the screen moving? Okay. All right, great, thank you. Okay, so this is our format. We use gratitude, practice, and service as our guiding principles of sharing. So I do want to show you one other thing. I know Linda cringes when she sees this worksheet. So as a math person, this is what our 2 hours together looks like to me. But no one has to worry about that because this is really what we're working off of. But I just wanted you all to see how I needed a grid when we created this for 5 people to do what Linda and I did, just the 2 of us. So we come together, we have about, and now I'm looking at the grid. I'm not showing you all the grid, but we just come together, takes about 5 minutes, and then we go into 4 minutes of silence. And we're sitting in the room in a comfortable way. I like to sit on the floor. I don't always, but that's something that's real comfortable for me. So everyone's in a comfortable spot. And then the first person volunteers to speak. So everyone in the group is going to share for 9 minutes. So if we were back at the grid, we would have a 9-minute share, and the person would use this format here. So when you see it says silence, that's how we started with the 4 minutes. And then in your share, you can talk about in any way you want to. This is just a framework. Gratitude. If you want to recount the abundance of something you're thankful for, a practice that you have, and a practice doesn't have to be, we have on here contemplative practice, but it could be taking a walk or a way that you get ready in the morning. What is a practice that really brings you into, a honed way and makes your day stand out to you? And then the third one is service. So service is a time to reflect. It could be about ABODE volunteer serving or if on the staff. But it also could be service to your family, a sibling that you're giving a listening ear to. And so you're just processing that in your 9 minutes. You could also take that 9 minutes and say you wanted to stop at 4 minutes. I mean, it's your 9 minutes to use as you would like. Everyone listens, and we say if the people that are listening want to also draw, that's okay. Like if you want to, sometimes people jot a note down or 2, but we're really listening to you. When that is done, we take a breath. So why don't we all just take a breath right now? Just whew. And then we shift to reflections from the listeners. So everyone that listened, and there's 4 people in the group listening, there are 5 in the group total, spends about 2 minutes reflecting back. So you can see on here, it's a verbal thing. It could be a sketch if you were sketching. It may be a, few sentences. It may be very few words, but it just may be one image that stood out. But this is the time of the autobiographical response that we're so conditioned to, and maybe we're so excited about the person's share that all of a sudden we shift it to, when you said this, it made me think that. And so I'm going to pause here and ask Linda if she has anything to add to that.
This reflection of the listeners is for people showing you that they listened to you, they heard you, and they see you. And this is so potent because we don't live in a world where you get that kind of loving feedback for a sustained 8 minutes. And so sometimes people get a little uncomfortable here and start cross-talking or, wanting to deflect. So you're not only refraining from doing autobiographical lists, you want to focus on that person, pick up a comment they said, tell them that you admire whatever it is that captured you about what they said, and pour love on them. And we can talk about this all day, but there is nothing that fully describes this is sacred. This is sacred. And we've had people in our group that are therapists that say it's taken them 6 meetings sometimes to get to where we get on the first meeting. It is very sacred work to be held and heard and seen.
Everyone gets to share, and about 8 minutes is up. We just kind of take a breath again. So why don't we all just pause right now and just take a breath in and out. And then we call this the author reflects. So the person that spent the time sharing, and then we've all reflected back to the author. Now they are going to reflect what they heard in the responses. So you can thank them, thank that people for what they said. You can expand on something that was said or something that struck you. And you can say a lot or a little. And sometimes there's, for myself, just kind of choking up in tears at just the depth of what happens when I hear, that love coming back and that reflection coming back. So we do that, and then you go to the next person. So it's the next second person speaks for 9 minutes. There's 8 minutes of reflection. There's 2 minutes of the author reflecting back from everyone's reflections. So we go around the room, and then we close with a prayer. I'm sorry, not a prayer, a poem. Sometimes energy movement. I know Linda's group, I haven't been in a group that's done this. I hope to sometime used a drum and had a closing drum time. And sometimes we share the responsibility. So among the 5 people, someone might bring a poem or have a way that they want to close the circle. And all that is voluntary, but usually people are happy to respond that way. So I love this, what we've added at the bottom. When you're in the group, you don't share what you hear in the group outside of the group. So what is said here stays here. But what is learned here leaves here. So go and use deep listening in your relationships. So that's how, we end the circle together. So it's a powerful time. I'm going to take the shared screen off unless anyone has, if you have a particular question about this, maybe you could write it in the chat. And then if we need to pull this back up, we can. at the Q&A time. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off. Okay. Linda, is there anything else you want to say about format before we move on?
I think their questions will be welcome and show us where we need to enhance our explanation. But let's move on, and then we'll come back and take care of any fuzziness.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to move into testimonials. I'm seeing Pam, thank you for your question in the chat. We'll do the testimonials now and then the Q&A after. So we have actually three people with Mary here, but Courtney and Jessica have both been in a deep listening circle. So would one of you like to go first and just give us a 1 to 2 minute testimonial and tell us what, Courtney, okay, why don't you go first? And, or you did
I'm here.
Good, you got
Yes,
unmuted. Okay.
Tell
us what
circle
you've been
I'm
in.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Tell us what circles you've been in.
Oh, okay. So I was in the first circle with you and Linda. Am I supposed to say people's names or just?
I think it's okay. Well, either way.
Can I say their name? Okay, Natalie and Susan. And then I just finished a circle with Linda and Jessica was in it, and Sandy and Ted. That's it.
Right.
So I have to say I've always been really, not always, but I've been really resistant to speaking in small groups because I feel like it's all about what you've been sharing about how it can be very painful because most people don't know how to listen. And so my experience with deep listening was very transformative in that I got to experience the beauty and the depth and the transformational power that real deep listening can provide. And it's very healing and evolutionary in the way that you're given insights because these people are skilled or they're doing their best to deep listen and reflect back to you what you're saying. So like speaking about what you're dealing with and what's going on in your life and having it reflected back is very just insightful, and it adds a lot of richness and direction and empowerment to what's going on. So it can really shift things in your life, on your life's path. And it's just, I feel like it's evolutionary and healing in these ways. And I did say after my first circle that it was more, I found it more beneficial than I had found therapy because I didn't feel like the therapist or maybe the models of therapy I was in were able to like really be as open to and humble to just listening, you know, and not coming back with some of their theories or just the ways they, you know, do therapy or whatever. But I found it really wonderful and helpful for me. And I'm also trying to apply it outside, you know, in my other relationships. It takes a while to really get there without doing the autobiographical response. But you know, it's all a process and it's a journey to get to that place. I feel like it takes practice. So that's my testimonial. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jessica, and then also in the Q&A, if anybody wants to ask Jessica and Courtney a question too, and Mary. So, but Jessica, if you're ready, and can you unmute?
Yes.
Yes, great.
So I would say one of the most striking things about the experience was how intimate it was. The setup of the situation, as opposed to therapy, is that you're sharing this level of intimacy with people. It's not just one-sided where a therapist may not share that level of intimacy with you on certain experiences. I don't know. That was my experience. So I was surprised at that. And for me, emotionally, having those real focused moments, I mean, there was more than several times that I had, I was overwhelmed with emotion. Even though the person speaking wasn't necessarily emotional, I was overwhelmed with emotion. And it really, in some ways, validated my everyday experiences where I feel other people's emotions and don't realize it. And sometimes I go, "Ugh, like, what is wrong with me?" But then when I sit and I intently listen, I let myself feel it and understand there's a difference between my feeling and somebody else's feeling. And I really enjoyed the fact that people were willing to, like Courtney and Ted and Linda and Sandy, and we were just willing to really show up 100%. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, to find people who are willing to improve and grow and expand and be part of something that is overall nurturing and safe. Like I felt like it was a safe place to be. And I think that's it.
Okay. Mary, do you want to say anything as an in-person testimony? She did do a written one, but it'd be
Yeah.
great to hear from you.
Well, was transformative for me to understand the importance of letting someone speak. And also because, I facilitate a lot of groups. The other thing I'm really attuned to is the importance of letting some space occur after someone is finished speaking. It's not unusual for somebody to make a really beautiful point, and as soon as they stop, somebody else dives right in with some other thing, and you're like, dude, or well, I mean, or gal, whatever. Wow, why did you just do that? This was so beautiful, and we didn't have a moment to celebrate it and process it, and you've now moved into a whole different direction. So I'm just real cognizant. Well, not all the time. I think there's always, there's always times where I think, oh gosh, I didn't use my deep listening skills. But when you go through this program, you really become very attuned to the give and take of speaking and being heard and listening and acknowledging someone. It's just the best gift you can give anyone. And I believe I heard that quote from Linda O'Neill. It's the best gift that you can give someone.
Okay. I'm going to pull up some written testimonies. There we go. So I am a numbers person and I ran these numbers today. So we started in January of 2024 with the first circle. And then the last circle, number 6, ended in mid-October. So we have 19 people that participated this year. 5 of them are facilitators. So Courtney is the facilitator. Natalie, myself, Susan, Ruck, and Linda. So we're and we've just been through multiple circles. That's how we've become facilitators. And then 14 people have participated in one circle. So I thought that was really a great number of people. And then when you do the math, it's 240 hours of deep listening. So that makes me so excited because the world could be a better place, just one circle at a time. Okay, so here are some of the testimonials. Mary, and is it easy? Maybe nod your head. Is it easy to read these? I don't want to necessarily just read them out loud. Okay, so look those over. And see if something stands out to you. If you want to put something in the chat about something that you see in those. Or maybe unmute yourself and ask a question if there's something on those 3 that stand out to you.
Susan's comment of, I just need to stay mindful. Just constant reminders.
Mm-hmm. I'm finding in myself, I'll hear someone talking and then I'll think, oh, that reminds me of this other topic. And then I find myself pausing saying, if I go that direction, it's going to change the whole energy. And so, you know, and that was just said, and that has made me more mindful. So thank you, yeah, for pointing out Susan's last sentence there.
I'd like to point out that I liked where Reina, is that how you pronounce the name?
Yes.
Yes.
Fourth, that I leave feeling more like myself, less alone and more connected. And in particular, how we can be connected but still feel more like ourselves because we can authentically show up in a safe place to even, in some ways, maybe even trial. Like you have an opportunity to speak about this experience, and then you realize that when you're authentically you, that's what other people want to see and experience is it's almost like mirroring authenticity, you know, if you can be authentic, then the other person can be authentic and we can learn more about our individual selves and yet we're still connected.
Mm.
Hi, sorry, I don't know if I can thank you, Catherine. So yeah, what she said about authenticity, I think that's a major component, is that it allows people to be more of their authentic selves. And I think that's really important.
Now scroll up and we've got, I don't know if I can make, yes, I can make this all fit. So this is Aspen's, and I loved some of her words as a sound healer, the vocabulary she's using. So this might be worth reading out loud because it is all one congruent thing. Would someone like to volunteer to read it out loud?
Sure, I will. As a sound healer and a person enamored of all kinds of sound and their benefits, I find deep listening to be a powerful tool. Deep listening has taught me to become a kind of resonant cave where I can allow the words, feelings, and meanings of the person I'm listening to reverberate. With the skills and perspectives that deep listening brings to us as active listeners, I am better able to simply sit in listening and let that be service to the person to whom I am listening. This is the essence of deep listening to me, to allow a person to truly be heard. What I am able to say in response and in support of the person is icing on the cake, because the simple act of deep listening fulfills the basic human need to be heard. I am able to use my deep listening skills as a doula with clients, family members, and the public when we talk and listen about the daunting topic of death. I hope that I can fine-tune my skills as I deepen my practice as a doula and walk my path as a sound healer. Many thanks to Linda and Susan and my fellow students, Miranda and Mario, for the wonderful experience of deep listening at ABODE. Aspen.
So anybody have anything stand out to them?
I particularly like the reverberation part, the resonant cave and yeah, because I mean, when I read that, I hear like the whole authenticity in the mirrors, and you know, like um we're tuning in You know, it's like we're able to hear when we can remember to just be listening and not try to do the autobiographical response.
Can you tell me what a sound healer is?
Yes, but I'm gonna let someone else. Mary.
Well, Aspen plays a gong. She has a big, beautiful gong, and she prepares the room or the setting for it, and she gongs. And she does it based on her senses, her intuition, and the sound of the gong brings healing powers to, you know, our nervous system. I don't know, now I'm above my pay grade, but she just it's a beautiful experience to be under the gong or near the gong while she plays it.
Okay.
I can add something to it. So it's basically it's almost like the vibrations are nourishing your nervous system, and some people call it vibraceuticals, and it's also just a way of putting someone in a non-ordinary state of consciousness or a liminal state where they're able to access healing energy within themselves, and also just like go into a space of almost meditation where they can release stress. That's another way of saying it.
Thank you.
This is Robin. I have something to add to that.
Okay.
I'm thinking, and it's along the same lines of the comments that just happened. There's something called co-regulation, where you regulate your nervous system among the people you're with or person that you're with, so that you're in the same kind of vibrational energy. And that's what that reverberation reminds me of.
Thank you. Yeah. That's great. Okay, I'm gonna stop the share and let's do some Q&A. And there are a couple other testimonials, but those can also be read at another time. So let's see what people are thinking. And so I'll go with Pam's question first. Do you think 4 people is the maximum number of attendees? So we've had 5 in the circles, and that's been 2 co-facilitators each time. And Linda, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I did one session as a single co-facilitator, and I much prefer doing it with a co-facilitator. The group went great, no problems, but it just, I like the energy of 2 of us holding the sacred space.
Were there 5 total in the group?
Yes, 4 participants and me.
Okay.
So Pam, 2 hours is about all people can carve out of their schedule. And
Right.
and this time allotment works. And so to add another person would mean adding another 20 minutes. So it'd be 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it's intense, loving energy, and it's just too long to sustain it more than 2 hours.
Okay.
That's our shared experience.
That makes sense. And I have another question. What do you do if someone does make a comment? Or have you had that happen where people have interrupted the speaker with a thought or a question, or an autobiographical sketch?
Yeah. Courtney and I, we were trying to make up some hand signals so that we could quietly coach people. but we established one and forgot to use it. And then like I forget sometimes. And one time I was doing autobiographical response and I caught myself and I went, oh my God, I just did it. And redirected. And Susan Rooks had the same experience. You know, she catches herself like, wait, I'm about to wander off in the weeds, come back and focus on that person. But we are thinking some little friendly hand signals because this is a new skill. And so, of course, we're going to make missteps. We are used to in our culture, and, you know, all of us is at least 20 years old. So we've had at least 20 years of where we talk, you know, it's like a tennis ball. We just bang the conversation back and forth. So you just want to support people of learning a new skill. One thing, we were all women the first couple of circles, and so we introduced men, and we believe that the kind of man that is active at ABODE is the kind of man that can do deep listening. And we have been affirmed because now we've had men in several groups and they do just fine.
Does anybody have a thought or a question? Is your mind spinning with ideas?
Hi, ladies.
Hi, Serena.
Hi, my name is Serena. I know you guys were saying that y'all pulled from a couple different sources to create this, but I was just wondering why y'all chose the gratitude service and practice.
Great question. Linda, you want to answer that?
Well, it's not the format that Catherine and I used, but we realized that we were serving the volunteers, and the volunteers needed to get their bucket filled so that they had the energy to go back out and do this work. It's the same thing, Pam, with Community of Hope. And the research is so clear about talking about gratitude, and then the word thinking about what are my practices that are sustaining me keeps us mindful of self-care. And so sometimes those practices people were talking about were self-care practices so that they could keep themselves fresh and on target. And just by the fact they're volunteers or service, but a lot of folks aren't used to self-care. So a lot of the conversation under service is non-traditional conversation because they're talking about learning to be of service to themselves and to commit to those practices and to enlarge those. And then the aha was GPS is the acronym for a navigation system. And we need a navigation system, and the navigators are the full-time staff at ABODE who are there 24/7. So that play on words was attractive. Serena, why don't you talk about, you've been through just a little abbreviated version of deep listening. Why don't you speak to what that was like for you? Just a little short experience.
Sure. Thank you for that answer, Linda, too. I was in the ABODE yoga doula training, yoga for end of life / doula training. And we actually started our training with deep listening. That was the first group exercise that we did, and it was facilitated by Natalie. And to echo everyone's experience, I also had a very transformative experience. It felt very revolutionary to me as well, Courtney, just to speak and be heard. And I remember in that moment thinking and feeling, I'm 28, so feeling like just up to my life now and being socialized as a woman, I I'm just not encouraged to use my voice. And I really resonated with what you said, Courtney, about being in small groups. I tend to shy away from small groups as well for the same reasons. So just to be in that circle where everything that I was sharing was being heard, and then like the icing on the cake like reflected back to me, it was just so rich. I left that experience feeling like fulfilled in a way that like nothing else can quite nourish you. So it was a really positive experience. So yeah, I was really excited to join again.
And I have been the co-facilitator for 5 of the 6 sessions thus far. And I have to say that each cohort is different, but we have not had a single experience where this template did not work. I trust this template. I trust the sacred nature of this work. And it's a calling to me. I feel so privileged that Mary and the Education Committee said yes to us, and Catherine and I tiptoed out going, okay, you know, is this going to work? We're taking something that's so precious between the two of us to see if it can work. And what a joyful path. And every single session is different. And I will say there was a hiccup in it because we were meeting at ABODE, and then that space needed to be redeployed for its original purpose. So now we meet at the inn at Los Patios, and they have been very welcoming. But our initial groups, we did not have the opportunity to say, would you like to meet again? And now the groups that are going through, some of them were bringing up like, well, I want to, can we sit in this group again? And so we're exploring what meeting again feels like with 2 of the groups.
I think that's really exciting because it did come up in the earlier groups that I was in. But we just never, it never came to fruition. You know, we said if anyone texts the group, we could all come together. But, and I don't know, I mean, do you think being at the inn at Los Patios created a different feel for that? And or an ease, because did you meet again at inn at Los Patios when you had your?
Yeah, they are so welcoming. I just text them. We're meeting in a room that's kind of under construction, and it's going to become a room that's going to be quite nice for the participants that live there. So I think that's going to be a transition if in fact we feel like we're kicking them out of a room they want to go sit in, but we'll just work through that because it's been such a construction site that nobody would be really wanting to go in there, but we just carve out our little space amidst all the boxes and wires, and it's sacred space.
That's great. Well, any other questions?
We're going to post this video on the ABODE website. So Pam, for any of your folks that would like to have a look-see, that's one of the big reasons we wanted to do this session, so that there would be that resource there, because it's really hard person by person to tell this whole story. And then it doesn't have the testimonials if Catherine and I are trying to explain it, or Courtney. So it feels like we are complete.
Yes. Would you all be comfortable with a closing contemplative moment? We could do just 2 minutes of sitting, kind of letting it settle in. And then if a question comes up, we can answer it, or if people are ready to get off and someone wants to stay on and ask a question, just see what comes over us as we take a little quiet time. So just get comfortable and take a few breaths in and out, and then I'll Call us back in 2 minutes. And just begin to open your eyes, wiggle your toes. Did anybody have a question pop up during that quiet time? All right. Well, thank you all very much. Mary, thank you for always being very open to the deep listening circles.
My pleasure. You've brought a very special program to our community. We're very grateful for you.
Thank you. Okay, well, and we are going to put some dates together for 2025 at Abode, well, at the Inn at Los Patios, but through Abode volunteers. So be on the lookout for that and just reach out to us and let us know if you're interested. And we'll make sure that, I mean, you'll hear about it anyway through the base camp, but we'll make sure you know about it.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.